Thank you all so much for having us back. As he said, my name is Allison Schlack, and I had the distinct privilege of being raised at Prince of Peace. And so many of you have walked this journey with me since the very beginning. Since I had this calling from God to go to a place I didn't know and plant a church and start sponsoring young people to go to school where there was no free education. And now I stand before you thanking you from the bottom of my heart, because without people like you, I wouldn't get to do what God had called me to do. Because of your support and your generosity, you make what we do possible. So we started with 29 students. We keep about 300 at a time. There's almost 700 that have gone through the program now. We have a church. We have a huge Sunday school program. We have a sports ministry with soccer and boxing. And finally, we started our own school. And so I stand here today so grateful for all that God has done. So I want to tell you a story that illustrates the power that God gives you guys to help people and to change lives and to open doors. So I lived in Kenya for 13 years without a car. So we would walk, we would ride on the back of bicycles, and we would use tuk-tuks. So we've got a picture there of a tuk-tuk cab. So it's like a cab set on a motorcycle, and it fits about 3 people, or if you're one of our students, 14. And I would go to meetings and go to town and run errands in a tuk-tuk, and I saw this young man who was selling eggs. Like, you could go and buy 1 egg, 2 eggs, and he was trying desperately to make ends meet. And he should have been in school, and so I would see him every day as I went back and forth in the tuk-tuk. So one day, I told the tuk-tuk driver, pull over, pull over. And I met a young man named John who had lost his parents. An aunt had promised to take him to school, instead was using him to sell these eggs. And his story was somewhat hopeless. So I said to John, I can't promise that we can help you, but why don't you go to the Abunga slum, to our office, and we'll see what we can do. And he actually did it. And the coolest part is that he grabbed a friend of his named Calvin's. And Calvin's story was just very sad. Calvin's parents had had a lot of domestic abuse problems. The family had really been torn apart, and Calvin's had run away in search of food. And he was sleeping on a mattress that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was so disgusting, out back of a shop, just doing whatever he could do to survive. So when his friend John said, come on, let's go, he did. And because of people like you, both of them were able to be sponsored. And they're both in college today. John is studying tailoring and design. Calvin's is studying IT. Both of them are Sunday school teachers, and they teach my own kids. It's incredible to me that through the work of my husband and our team, that these 2 young men have come to know Jesus and their lives have been transformed, and that it may be that my children learned something about Jesus because of them. I mean, it touches my heart at the very core. So for those of you that have met my husband, he's a pastor, and he loves Jesus, and he disciples people, and he's very passionate about it. But on the side, he's an amateur boxer. Now, I always say to him, maybe you could pick something with a few less head injuries. But nonetheless, he's very passionate about it. And we are constantly looking for ways to bring people into our compound and into the ministry. We cannot possibly sponsor every kid who needs help, but we can run a soccer program. We can run a boxing program. We can have Sunday school. We can start an actual school, and that continues to compound the amount of young people and families that are hearing the gospel and having a chance to be helped and having a chance for new opportunities every day. So Calvin's the Sunday school teacher. He's a short guy, very slim. He comes to my husband and I, and he says, I would like to be a boxer. And we're like, oh, Calvin's, 1 punch and we think you'd fly over the ring and that would be the end of your story. But he started to train. every day for hours. So he would go to school during the week, come back and train. He would teach Sunday school, he would work odd jobs, and he would train. And sure enough, he started to compete and win. And this picture is, to me, a testimony of what happens when not only someone gets an opportunity to know Jesus and to walk with him, which is, of course, the most important thing that could happen. This is what happens when passions are uncovered and doors are open that never would have been opened otherwise. Calvin's, unfortunately, did not make it, but this was the Olympic trials in Kenya. He qualified for the Olympic trials in boxing. And though he didn't make it, he's in his early 20s. I suspect that if you stick around with us for the next 4 years or 8 years, Michael and I will be desperately trying to get to the Olympics, wherever they're being held that year, to watch him compete. And as I said, I want to be so clear that the most important thing that this job has taught me over all the years is that people need Jesus and people need a job, a dignified job that pays a fair wage. But how incredible is it that because of people like you, a young man has discovered a passion that could change the course of the rest of his life. And because of his teaching of Sunday school, may change the course of my children's lives. So Prince of Peace, please come see us in the fellowship hall after the service. We want to invite you to participate. We have 300 kids in the sponsorship program, and we got 1 or 2 sponsors at the early service. So there's 15 kids like Calvin and John that still need sponsors, and that's it. So if you are in a position to sponsor a student, help them have the opportunity to hear the gospel, to go to school, would you please come find us? Then, if sports are your thing, we are trying to buy Western Kenya's first ever official boxing ring. And we hope to do it on Amazon. But it is about $5,000 for all of it. And then the last thing I would say is that if education is important to you, we have started a school and we are adding 2nd grade in January at the start of the new school year. So if that interests you, please come and find. We're in need of desks and chalkboards and all the supplies to get things started. So those are 3 very specific and profound ways that if God is calling you, you can join us. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. May God richly bless you. Please come see us after the service.